Hi, and welcome to another episode of Drafting Notes. I'm Marco.
I'm Tarek.
Yeah, and on Drafting Notes, we always like to try and talk about a specific writing topic that is at the forefront of our minds. And this week, I wanted to talk to you about something that I think probably affects most authors, even
Yep.
published authors,
Yep.
which is how do you find the time to write, especially if you have a day job? Because even if you're a published writer, as we all know, you don't make a huge amount of money generally out of books, especially early on in your career. So many people don't have the luxury of being able to give up the day job just to
Yeah.
focus on writing. And it can be difficult with your day job, but also with other things in life, I guess, as well. How do you how do you manage it? I mean, how and I'm asking you, Tarek, how do you manage it?
Well, I think for starters, I remember being, I think probably like everyone when you first go down the kind of like learning what it is to be a writer path, being quite surprised that loads of writers, probably the majority of writers, still have a job of some kind. Like it's pretty rare, as you say, to be able to make a living full time off your writing, which is, I think, what most writers probably want to be able to do. I certainly what I
Yeah,
would like to be able to do. But yeah, it's very difficult, especially when you're starting out. I think that kind of moving into the world of writing and knowing it is tricky because a number of reasons. The time I think it takes to get a book and then to get that book out there and to start making money off that book, and then the money when it starts coming in is in bits and pieces, dribs and drabs over years, and it's nowhere near enough to a lot of cases take over your salary unless you're one of the people who've managed to get a massive upfront advance, etc. So for a lot of people, it's small amounts of money over a long period of time, and you can't just throw in the towel. So what I've started to do is I've started to like kind of cut down my hours at work basically. So obviously my final ultimate goal is to be able to write for I was able to spend as much of my working week as possible writing and as little as possible on my day job really. Obviously if my boss is listening, love my day job. But so at the moment I've gone down to 4 days a week, which is nice because I've got like a day as a pure writing day type thing. And my hope is that some point next year, maybe drop that down to 3 days and then have 2 days writing and just try and, for as long as I can, maintain that. And then when I feel like I've got kind of enough momentum or there's enough confidence that there's stuff coming down the line, that I could maybe cut another day and shift over to writing and slow. I guess, the ultimate goal, obviously, as I say, is to shift everything over to writing. But yeah, it's a slow process and it is a case of knowing it's going to be a slow process and just accepting I'm going to be working my day job for a while to come whilst also writing.
yeah, and that being the case, then how do you fit the writing in?
Well,
Okay,
yeah.
you've got this extra day now, but before you even had that, how were you fitting the writing in? Were
Well,
you
it is.
were you
It's
writing every day for a certain amount of time, or have a word
yeah.
target, or what did you
So
do?
I used to have a daily target, but then I stopped that because I was just getting depressed when I wasn't hitting it. So I tried a few different times of day to try and get in a routine of when I would write. And so what I've found disgustingly is that the kind of 5 a.m. slot is great because you got to get it done. You got to get up, you get it done, and it's written, and then you've got the whole day. You don't need to think about it. It's almost like going to the gym. It's like it's done. I've got my words in page. And then if I've had a bad morning, or I've not got very much done, I can still maybe try and do something at lunchtime or in the evening. Or if I've
Yeah,
had an amazing run and I'm still buzzing, I can still, so there's still got more time in the day to add more onto that kind of hour, 2 hour slot in the morning before the kids get up. But recently, kids have been a bloody nightmare. Like, they've been up late at night, like up super early in the morning.
pesky kids.
Pesky bloody kids doing everything. So that I've kind of lost that slot in the morning. So at the moment, the time I've actually been able to find the best time to write right now is like 7:30, 8 o'clock onwards, like just when the kids have first gone down, because that's kind of longest stretch when they're asleep most days. So that's kind of when I'm finding I can get a slice to write. But what about you? Because you're 5 days a week. So when do you do your writing? And I suppose,
Yeah,
as you say, we're both fortunate because we both work at home, and that maybe it does make it easier to kind of even slice off a little half hour here or there of the writing of
yeah,
the
yeah.
working day.
But well, I think definitely, I've got better at being able to write in smaller chunks, I guess.
Hmm.
Whereas previously, I was very much like, I want to write, so I now need to dedicate X amount of time to sitting down and writing.
Yeah.
And often what that would mean is that I would often procrastinate for a good 45 minutes to an hour before I actually started the
Yeah.
actual writing. And I try and cut that down now and try and just get straight in. And sometimes it does mean that I'll write for 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, or whatever. And it all still helps add up. And I think it also depends, for me personally anyway, it depends on how I feel the story's going. So
Hmm.
if I'm feeling that there is a good, you're in the flow or whatever they call it, but you feel that you're in a good place with the story, then it's easier to do that because I can say, right, I'll do 20 minutes of this. Sometimes extend that 40 minutes or whatever, but you can then come back to it much easier and
Yeah.
pick it up and keep going on that.
Yeah.
Where it's harder is if you're in a tricky part of the story or and you're not sure where you want to go. I do find that I need a more dedicated period of time
Yeah.
to be able to work my way through that. And sometimes working my way through that is just trying to work out what I'm going to do and not actually get that many words on the page. I've never
Yeah.
been someone that likes to have a target. I've always been time focused rather than word count focused, if you like, in
Yeah.
terms of a daily goal. And it is a case, I do personally prefer, try to do it in the morning. I'm not 5 a.m. because I'm not a lunatic, but but yeah, morning I find is good. Evening can be, but it's difficult after a day job. Sometimes you're just knackered,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is sit down and try and work through a story.
Yeah.
Although it comes back to the fact that we write ultimately because we enjoy it. And if I'm liking the story that I'm writing, then it might take me a bit longer, but it can still be something that I end up enjoying doing, even if
Yeah.
I think at the start of it, oh, I can't be bothered today.
Yeah.
What I think is most important is, or for me again, as ever, these rules are not rules; they're just what work for me. But
Yeah.
um, what I've found has really helped me in terms of productivity is simply making it a habit. So
Yeah.
simply
I agree.
doing it every day, or not every day. I'll take days off here and there. I'm not
Yeah,
like
but
going to be writing on
regular.
Christmas Day, but
Yeah.
regular writing is a huge thing because I think it is so easy with writing to say, "Oh, I'll do it next week," or you know what, I'll have more time on Saturday, so I'm just going to do it on Saturday. I'm not going
And
to
then
do
you
it today.
decide it comes and you're busy.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it
exactly.
slips and slips and
Yeah,
slips.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
No,
Yeah,
I totally agree with that. I think routine and a regular slot or regular thing is the key for me as well. And it's the same as like exercise. It's that kind of if I have a slot where I do it, then I'll do it. And if I don't, I will think of a reason to do it later and then later and later. And I think the more of a routine you have is, as you say, the more you're able to kind of get into that headspace quicker. And so maybe your routine
yeah.
is like, I've got an hour slot here. That's all I have. I've got like a lunchtime hour. I'm going to do this hour. And whereas before, when I've got like 3 hours ahead of me, I would be the exact same. I would spend half of that time probably mucking about, really. Certainly the first half hour mucking about before I really not settled into it. Whereas if I know I've got an hour and it's and the same hour I have every day or whatever, I do find myself getting into that writing way quicker and mucking about more,
Hmm.
less. Sorry, um, and something which I found, which I almost didn't want to work because I really hate the idea of it. But that kind of, is it the Pomodoro method? It's called, where you have
Oh
like
yeah. Uh-huh.
it definitely has worked for me. I think psychologically. So you have like, there's an app I've got on my computer, of course, where it has like 25 minutes of working and then 5 minutes off, and then 25 minutes working, 5 minutes off. And then after I think 4 or 5 chunks of that, you then get 20 minutes off and then back to it again. And there is something about the psychological thought in the back of my mind where I'm like, no, don't, what about Superman trailer? What about Twitter? Like all this kind of stuff in the back of your head. And I'm like, no, because I've got 5 minutes coming up and I can look at all then. And it does help me put it to one side and focus for 25 minutes. And then I get 5 minutes of like free reign and then you go wild and then your alarm goes off again, you start again. And having that release every 25 minutes has helped me push the kind of like the monkey with the symbols to right to the end and focus for that
Hmm.
25-minute stretch. So that's something which I wasn't sure would work, but it has worked. It has definitely helped me focus more.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I suppose that, linked to all of this, I guess, is if you have, for some people it won't help, but some people, if they do have a deadline, if you need to get your book in by
Mhm.
February or something, then just having that deadline can be something that forces you to sit down and get it
Oh
done.
yeah, for
But
sure.
going back to the original um, topic, I guess it, it is difficult. It's difficult to, you know, not just your job, but other life things will get in the way,
Yeah, yeah,
whether it's kids or other stuff. And you do have to kind of pull yourself back to do the writing. And I think that's where building a habit, building a routine, and finding what works for you is so important because for me, I think the most important thing is that you want to make it as easy as possible to get some more words on the page, whether
yeah,
that's 10 words, 100 words, 1,000 words, it doesn't really matter. But if you can make it easier so that when you sit down in that chair or whatever, um, you are more quickly starting to jump
yeah,
back in where you were, then that's the way you're going to make progress more
yeah.
quickly.
Have you found that moving like where you write or the medium that you write makes difference? Because I've found recently that um like trying to fit in a bit of writing here and there around the working day quite helpful. So I use Scrivener, which I know you use as well
Mm.
quite a lot on your I use it on my Mac, and then Marco knows this, but I recently moved to iPhone. Wonderful,
Yes, you become
wonderful
an
phone.
Apple bot. Yeah.
I'm way on the walled garden now and loving it. And but I got the Scrivener app for my phone, and I wasn't sure if I would use it or not or how helpful it would be. But actually, I found has been really helpful having it on my phone as well as my laptop because it has meant um, I can like if I'm in bed or on the bus or whatever, I can open up on my phone, I can read over stuff and I can read over edits or I can even tap
Okay.
out a rough paragraph here and there. And just it's kind of as you say, that 20 minute like you can chip away at it and you can add it in and then at least I've got something I can then the next day or whatever I can sit down on my laptop and look at it and I've got stuff to work with rather than a blank page. So that, like, having an extra way of adding words onto the word count I found quite helpful. So I don't know if that's something which you've ever looked at or not.
Yeah, like I've always thought it odd, but you're not the only person I know that says, "Oh, having Scrivener on my phone is great." I can't imagine writing on my phone.
Oh, so
Sorry,
honestly, I,
you
I
know,
I
but
was the same, and I don't think I could do a full book at it, but I think little chunks or looking over, like doing
I
a
think looking
revision of
over
stuff
stuff, I can
is
see
quite
that
good.
that would be
Yeah,
very useful. Yeah. Um, but maybe obviously works for people. So I'm not dismissing it. It's just not something that I've ever considered as a thing. But
what about if you got an Apple headset and you sat in the bus and you just put that on and you had like a
a
computer
Vision
behind you,
Pro.
a Vision
Yeah.
Pro, like that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing
And you can
that,
be that
if you
twat
can
in the bus.
afford a Vision Pro, then you probably don't need the day job, in which case, you can be a writer full time. So yeah, I think as ever with these things, I don't think there is a solution that is the answer for you. You have to kind of try and find it yourself. But I
Yeah,
think you have to, if you want to write, you have to find the time to write.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing.
That's
Don't,
exactly it.
I
Yeah,
think the only thing that I would say that probably is a rule is don't keep putting it off.
yeah,
Don't keep saying, "Oh, I'll do it next week," or "I'll do it at the
yeah,
weekend," or I'll start in January because that's a good time to start.
yeah,
Start today and keep writing. Even if it's 10 words a day, you'll
yeah.
suddenly be, eking out a story there. So, um, and then within that, find the times or the techniques, whether it's the Pomodoro technique or whatever that work for you. Um, and I think that is the way you can if you write 100 words a day, you'll be clearing the thousands of words. You'll be writing a book
Oh yeah.
within months. You know what I mean? If you're
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to
It's
do that.
actually it's always nuts to me when you break it down like that. How little I put that in commas, but how little work it is to actually get your word count up. It is
Yeah.
just you don't need to do it. People talk about I did a draft in 6 weeks, so just blah, blah, but you don't need to be these people who write quickly. You can write. It can take as long as it takes. I think it is just it's exactly as you say. It's finding the time to do it. It's doing it, and it's not putting it off. And the best time to start is now. What's the
Uh,
phrase? Best time to start. was yesterday. Second best time is now. That's not
Yeah,
a phrase.
I think
Something
it's
like that.
something
Is it
like
that?
that. I
Whatever
think,
it is.
yeah,
That's my
that's
motto.
the new phrase. That's the
It's the
tarot
new
phrase.
phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll draw it to a close there because it'll give us more time to snatch a little bit of writing time.
Yeah.
But if you enjoyed this episode, please do leave a comment below it if you're watching it on YouTube or on our Patreon. These episodes are timed exclusives on our Patreon, so you get
Yep.
them months and months before they will be released on YouTube. So another great reason to check out our Patreon. There's lots of other benefits, bookmarks, pin badges, free notebooks, free books,
Notebook. Yeah.
lots of
No.
stuff. And we're still planning to add more to the Patreon, including bonus episodes of shows as well. So please do check that out as
Yep.
well. But we will be back with another episode of Drafting Notes very soon, tackling another writing topic.
See you later.